Story Studios in downtown Little Rock. This is Capitol View with your host, David Goins.
Good Sunday morning to you. Welcome into Capitol View. Down the stretch in Arkansas's biggest races of 2014, we'll give you an all-access look at two candidates, plus our political long table, campaign strategy experts with unique insight on what makes races tick. But first, a quick look at the week in Arkansas politics. Well, Arkansas Supreme Court will hear arguments on the state's ban on same-sex marriage next month. Justice has set a November 20th date to hear oral arguments on whether the ban is unconstitutional. In May, a Pulaski County judge tossed out the amendment, which did briefly allow same-sex couples to get married here in Arkansas before the ruling was stayed. Now, a second lawsuit challenging the state's same-sex marriage ban will also be heard on the same date, November 20th. That one will be in federal court. Well, a week into early voting, voter turnout in many Arkansas counties up from last midterm election 4 years ago. Pulaski County seeing a nearly 50% increase, at least in the first few days. Election commissioners believe more people were voting because of the clear high-profile contested races that we were seeing and statewide ballot issues like that of a wet-dry initiative and a proposal to increase the state's minimum wage.
Information technology, social media, the parties and the candidates are better able to identify their voters and get them to the polls.
Speaking of early voting, Democrat for Governor Mike Ross and Republican Senate candidate Tom Cotton among those who have already taken the opportunity to vote early. And on that U.S. Senate race, both Mark Pryor and Tom Cotton say they're going positive in this final week of the campaign. First, Tom Cotton.
Tom Cotton is on their mind.
His campaign producing a 14-minute paid documentary on the 37-year-old talking about his hometown roots, his military service, and a little bit about policy at the end. You might see the super long-form campaign commercial pop up on your TV screen this week or a shorter version on the silver screen. That's right. Get your refreshments, your Cotton campaign ad, and then you can watch your movie. As for Senator Mark Pryor, his campaign uncorking 4 what they call positive ads featuring his independence in the Senate, an endorsement from retired General Wesley Clark, and his consumer protection work with children's toys. A little later, we'll talk about how the latest bevy of positive campaign vibes could be translating to voters. And here at Capitol View, we're taking advantage of these final weeks of the campaign to give you an up-close look at the candidates in the leading races. We want to share a couple of those with you this morning. First, the U.S. Senate campaign and a day with Mark Pryor fighting to keep his seat in D.C.
Thank you for being here. This is Arkansas politics right here, getting out, talking to people, asking them for their vote. It's great.
For Mark Pryor, it's the final 2 weeks of a Senate campaign unlike any he's seen before.
I think the one thing that is different that was hard to anticipate is the amount of outside money that is in politics today. We need to fix that.
But in order to fix, and some say save, the Democratic brand in Arkansas, the 51-year-old two-term senator needs a turnout on Election Day exceeding expectations.
People here really do vote for the person, and that's huge. And that's really one reason I feel like people will reelect me.
The Democrats need to put the pedal to the metal the last few days.
Magnolia Alderman James Moore firmly in Pryor's camp, but told us this afternoon many voters don't see non-presidential years as big elections. But in small-town Arkansas, he says face-to-face interaction still matters.
If you see him on TV, you know, that's, or you hear him on the radio, it's really different from actually being able to go up, shake his hand, ask him questions, and get some feedback. It'll make it seem more real.
What'll make it more real for the Pryor campaign if the reported 130,000 registered new voters turn out in big numbers to put him over the top.
Each of us in the next 2 weeks, we're going to run across 100 people that if we don't ask them to vote, they probably won't vote. Get out there and ask people to vote.
While the statewide races like governor and Senate, of course, getting much of the attention, local races could also determine the future of Arkansas's health care reform plan. The joint House and Senate Public Health Committee reviewing on Thursday some details of the private option, including some benefits for next year. But as those discussions continue, sitting legislators know a growing minority of lawmakers would like the private option to wind down, and there are questions about the law's fate after Election Day.
a lot of things will change after November 4th. We know that. And so hopefully, though, what will not change is the will of the people, and that we are here to do the will of the people, the 135 that will be here, along with the other leadership in the state that you guys have trusted us with. Hopefully, we'll do the right thing again, no matter who is in these seats.
And of course, the next governor will also play a role. Democrat Mike Ross, firm supporter of the private option and its continuance. Republican Asa Hutchinson taking more of a wait-and-see approach that we'll see about a little bit later in this show. Arkansas lawmakers hoping to ease jail overcrowding and looking toward a private contractor that operates prison facilities in neighboring states. LaSalle Corrections contracts with agencies in Louisiana and Texas to house inmates. It's proposed it could house up to 500 mid-level offenders from the Arkansas Department of Correction. It's one option to begin alleviating jail backlogs and overcrowding in the prison system.
There's no facilities available for us in the state of Arkansas if we don't kind of think outside the box.
There are questions over reoffense rates, constitutional issues, and costs from turning over to a private company. Arkansas has tried that once in the past. The committee chair wanting to see LaSalle draft a formal proposal for the state. Other presentations lawmakers heard this week include alternative sentencing and reentry programs. Coming up after a quick break, we'll talk to two people who know a lot about the stressful final weeks of a big-time campaign. Our political long table, Clint Reed, Robert McClarty, they're coming up next. I'm David Goins. You're enjoying Capitol View on Sunday morning.
Bruce Westerman is a proven conservative who stood up to Barack Obama. James Lee Witt will be another vote for Obama's failed agenda. Westerman is an outsider who will change Washington. Witt is a Washington insider and lobbyist who's made millions from taxpayers on no-bid government contracts. Witt's firm was even investigated when their bill for Katrina recovery work skyrocketed from 26 to 40 million. Bruce Westerman, the conservative outsider for Congress.
I'm Bruce Westerman, and I approve this message.
No, he loves me. He loves me not. He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me.
Warm and flaky and 15, everyone loves Pillsbury Grams.
Make dinner pop.
Guess what goes really well with eggs? Pillsbury Grams biscuits make breakfast even better. Grams biscuits make breakfast pop.
At 22.5, now 2,500.
Little Red River Resort Auction, Friday, October 31st at 10 a.m. 100 Swinging Bridge Road, Heber Springs, Arkansas. 50-acre income-producing property on the Little Red River. Waterfront home with boat dock. 8 waterfront manufactured home lots. 2 RV parks totaling 143 spaces. 9 commercial buildings and development land for future expansion. Offered in 6 tracks and combinations. For more information, go to wilsonauctioneers.com.
I have sold it, sold it, sold it.
Even though we pay our Social Security taxes our entire lives, claims for Social Security are often initially denied. You have to fight your way through the bureaucracy, and you need help.
You can count on us.
The Brad Hendricks Law Firm has successfully represented thousands of Social Security applicants. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 221-0444.
You can count on all of us.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View as we head down the stretch for campaign 2014. Time to take a peek a little bit behind the veil at some of the strategies in play in getting candidates potentially elected next week. We're joined this morning by our political long table. He is the head of the consulting for the Republican Impact Management Group, Clint Reed. Thank you, sir. And with the Markham Group, Robert McClarty. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
All right, guys. Let's start with, where do you guys want to start? Let's maybe start with polls. Are the polls right, Robert? We'll start with you.
You know, polls are really hard at this point, in my mind, to get a good read. I mean, you're looking at some folks getting 7, 8 phone calls a week for polls. So, you know, are they right? Yeah, I mean, I think they're somewhat gauging folks, but a lot of folks right now are not answering the phone calls. They've turned their phones off. They've made up their decisions, and now it's just about going out to vote. So the only poll that that we're focused on is the poll that's every day, who's turning out to vote and getting those folks to turn out. That's the poll that's going to drive this thing.
Clint, your take?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if the people that are in the know are looking at the aggregates of all the polls right now, I think it gives you a pretty good idea where the races are. I agree with Robert. He and I are probably digging into the early vote numbers every day, seeing who's voted, who hadn't voted, who are our people that are supposed to have turned out and voted, have they not voted, and why. To me, that's the most important piece of data right now.
Okay, early voting, we talked about that a little bit earlier in the show. The idea being, at least in Pulaski County, pretty good early vote turnout. What's kind of y'all's takeaway from at least the first 5 days of early voting?
What I see right now is that there is a good bit of enthusiasm, maybe more so than 2010. But I think what's more telling is people that are turning out are consistent general election voters anyway, what I call 3s and 4s and 5s.
What does that mean?
It means that people that are low propensity voters that don't turn out, to me, I think that's Robert's struggle in this campaign, is getting those people to turn out. I haven't seen a large number of those people start to turn out, especially in Pulaski County. I think they're cannibalizing voters, meaning people that would traditionally vote on Election Day are starting to vote early. So you're probably looking at a lower turnout on Election Day.
I think that overall, the apples to oranges from 2010 would turn out. I mean, we're looking at 115,000 as of close of business yesterday compared to 83,000 in 2010. That's 35% higher. Something's happening above those historic turnouts. Now, I think what Clint said is true. You've got to get your votes out on the day of, but we've got another 10 to 12 days of voting, and we're going to take advantage of that, pushing people every day and reminding them how important this election is.
All right, you guys are experts. I mean, are you able to look at early voting numbers? You said, like, who is voting. How are you able to determine from just looking at early voting number who's voting?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think the state of Arkansas does really well is keep track of method of voting. So if you were to go vote in the last 2 election cycles, 3 election cycles, I can go in and see whether you're a poll voter, an early voter, an absentee ballot voter. Robert is probably keeping a very close track of who those people are. So that's what we see every day. We get the list from the Secretary of State's office. We've gone through it. I mean, we've data mined it and have a pretty good idea of who needs to vote that hasn't so far.
Well, I think that's our secret sauce versus Clint's secret sauce. I mean, it's the way that we're scoring voters, looking at them from an analytic standpoint, how they're going to perform, who they're going to support, and getting those guys out. And from our perspective, our GOTV targets are turning out, and they're turning out in a bigger way than they have in the past. So we're excited about that. Washington County right now is performing about 150% higher than it did in 2010. And among those, we've got a pretty decent little clip of younger voters under the age of 23 turning out. So
you're able to decipher some specific demographics?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're able to see pretty deep in those who have turned out, who they are, where they're coming from, and how they would likely vote in this election.
So when I vote, I'm not anonymous. I always think I'm an anonymous voter.
We've got you pegged.
All right. It's you guys are the experts. That's why we bring you in to talk about this stuff, because I don't think a lot of people maybe know about this. Well, I guess kind of transitioning a little bit. You talked about the amount of people who have early voted. I was going to ask is the die cast? Does anything happen in this final week that changes the dynamics? Obviously, a candidate would have to do something. There's no way to predict that. But should we expect anything more than what we've seen from this point?
I don't think so. If you look at the polling data, I mean, the margin of undecided voters just continues to shrink. I think people have made up their mind. They're ready to vote. And if they haven't voted, especially at this point, I mean, the likelihood that they are going to vote, I think diminishes as you get closer to Election Day. I don't think a lot's going to change. I think the only thing that can change is just a matter of turnout, and that's what both sides are focused on at this point.
Ours is every day a continuation, almost Groundhog's Day. I mean, what we do today is not going to be any different what we do on Saturday and then going into Monday. It's a refresh of our voters who have voted, taking them off our list, getting our volunteers, getting our teams back out with walk packets and phone lists, and continuing to drive that phone call and that door knock to push people out. And we're going to do that all the way through 7 o'clock, 7:30 on election night.
And just to circle back on the get out the vote part, Clint, are you happy with what you're seeing? I mean, you're keeping track of it. And same question for Robert. I mean, are both of y'all pleased with early voting, or which one of y'all are maybe feeling we need to do a little more?
One of the pieces of data that we look at are where the votes are coming from throughout the state. We typically look at precincts that perform better than 53% for Republican candidates versus those precincts that perform less than 47% for Republicans. Compare those two. Traditionally, we run about 10% better, or we have the last 2 election cycles. We're pretty close to that margin right now. We feel pretty good about where we are.
So doing well in Republican precincts.
That's correct.
Right. We look at it as an overall target and how we score them. I mean, we've got areas such as Benton County that historically is a very Republican county. We've got good Democratic voters up there that are voting for Mark Pryor and Mike Ross. Younger voters, new registration voters, people that have come onto the voter roll that have never voted before. We feel good about the turnout. Even though it's higher in a Republican county right now, we feel that some of those votes are coming out for vote for us.
All right, guys. We'll do a little more after the break?
Sure.
Sounds
all right,
good.
Robert McClarty, Clint Reed, dropping all types of voter knowledge on us this morning. More with both of them when we come back. I'm David Goins. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
I have been looking for that one special piece. Something authentic and romantic. I know I'll know it when I see it. Aha! Found it. That's perfect.
Inspire imagination and discover for yourself the Lost and Found collection. Now at Oak Express.
I'm retired General Wes Clark. I served in uniform under 6 presidents. In times of crisis, we need experienced, pragmatic leaders. I've looked at both candidates in this race, Tom Cotton and Mark Pryor. And there's only one man who's demonstrated he's a responsible leader and can reach across the aisle and get things done. In the United States Senate, Arkansas and America need Mark Pryor.
I'm Mark Pryor, and I approve this message.
No, he loves me. He loves me not. He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me.
Warm and flaky and 15, everyone loves Pillsbury Grams.
Make dinner pop.
Guess what goes really well with eggs? Pillsbury Grams biscuits make breakfast even better. Grams biscuits make breakfast pop.
What kind of a country turns its tax collectors into secret police? And what do you call a government that values its own survival above the rights of its people? A country where leaders act like mob bosses, attacking citizens with rules and restrictions they fear they'll never have the power to overcome. Where the content of your prayers is between you, your God, and your government. Our nation of laws is becoming a nation of corruption, where whoever has the power throws their punches while they can. Everyone loses under this type of lawlessness. So we must do now what we've always done as Americans. As good guys, speak out. No government agency has the right to attack its citizens with fear. We are the 5 million men and women of the National Rifle Association of America, leaders in the fight for freedom for all. Join us.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Okay, welcome back to Capitol View. I'm David Goins. We rejoin our political long table. Clint Reed from Impact Management, Robert McClarty from the Markham Group. Okay, you guys have both been in Arkansas politics for a while, several cycles, seen plenty. Anything this election campaign season stand out fundamentally different from anything Arkansas has seen other than just the amount of ads? I mean, obviously there's been a lot of money spent. Other than that, though, strategically or dynamically, what's maybe been different, if anything?
Well, I mean, I'd say for the Senate race, it's probably the Senate seat that's going to decide the majority.
That's right.
I mean, for the first time, Arkansas is really in a spotlight nationally with maybe 1 or 2 other states to see what party is going to control the Senate in D.C. So, I mean, that's a big, big change from years past. We've never been in the spotlight with the national press in and out of the state for the last 6 or 7 months, going to small fish fries and you know, I guess, events on the weekend with the candidates. I mean, that's happening, I think, from an attention standpoint, it's a lot higher.
So that Arkansas puzzle piece in the Senate landscape picture.
Yeah, one of the things, Tom Cotton recently bought 30-minute segments of airtime. I mean, that's unprecedented. To me, the other dynamic that I think is the growing trend for the future of politics is social media. I mean, you know that. You're on it each and every day. It's dominating how money's being spent and how candidates are reacting to things. To me, that's been one of the most interesting parts of this election cycle is to see how the campaigns have tailored their campaigns to social media and how they've altered their campaigns, you know, throughout the course. They started off very slow. A lot of them didn't want to embrace social media, and now it's how they're driving media each and every day. So,
I'll say, how do we translate, you know, 10,000 Facebook likes to voting, or can you make that connection, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to, and you know, folks that like your page are going to be generally your supporters, right? So there's a way to convert that into maybe someone volunteering, reminding their neighbors or their friends to go vote. So you're kind of building an army in a sense that you're trying to do almost a tiered multiplier effect with others. So it raises money as well. I mean, social media is a big driver for raising money online and over Facebook now. So that's a game changer in a lot of ways.
I'll say a lot of people who maybe support one candidate or another will get the fundraising emails, but obviously Facebook will probably just as effective in that respect. Does it necessarily, is there any way to know if the efforts put into social media bears fruit on election day? Or is it just the belief that this is just needs to be another tool in our toolbox, even if we don't have maybe analytics or so forth?
Yeah, some of the really good digital shops, I know in our shop, we have the ability using conversion type programs with Facebook and other social media applications to be able to collect data, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses. Then you go back in, you target those to what's called the voter file, and then you start tracking those people and making sure that not only are they getting touched via mail, radio, TV, but now they're getting touched multiple times with emails and targeted Facebook ads.
It's like stuff showing up in my news feed, that type of thing?
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's what that is.
It's to a point now you just don't want to run a deficit. So if you're hitting the door, if you're talking to them on the phone, or you've got a mail piece in their mailbox, you don't want to be short on the digital side as well. So you want to keep it up on all levels.
So maybe social media, maybe it doesn't win an election, but it certainly doesn't hurt to have it. I mean, you can maybe lose it if you don't have it.
That's exactly
That's
it.
right.
You have to have it.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. One other question I want to throw in while we got here, you know, about a minute left. At least from big picture, you know, GOP standpoint, Clint, you know, obviously a strategy has been to link major candidates, Ross, Pryor, to the president.
Sure.
For all the complexities that you guys have talked about involved in campaign strategies, is essentially that it for this race for Republicans? Has it been that easy?
Well, remind people of the policies of Barack Obama each and every day. Remind people of the policies of Nancy Pelosi each and every day. And don't make it more complicated than it needs to be, whether that's direct mail, whether that's telephone calls, whether that's radio or Facebook ads. You can't make it, you know, too complicated, or the average person out there who's very busy with their daily lives, they're not going to grasp it the way that they should. So keep it simple, and I feel like the Republicans have done that, not only in the Senate race, but the governor's race and down ballot.
Robert, last 30 seconds, maybe dealing with that.
Well, I mean, it's been clear that's what the plan was going to be from day one. But the last time I checked, Barack Obama won't be on the ballot in November. So, I mean, our strategy is to make it about Arkansas, is to make it about the records of our candidates and what they're going to do for the state, and not make it about D.C. So, I mean, it's been the D.C. angle versus what we're doing here in Arkansas, and I think that's going to be what Arkansans are going to decide on Election Day.
Any predictions?
Senate race to Cotton, governor's race to Asa.
I'm going to go the opposite of Clint on that. So.
We expect nothing less. All right,
Surprise,
gentlemen.
surprise.
Yeah, thanks so much. Clint Reed, Robert McClarty, some excellent analysis late during election season. Thanks so much, gentlemen. All right, well, when we come back, the second part in our all-access campaign look, Republican Asa Hutchinson in Fort Smith. Don't go too far. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
Madam President.
Shirley, what do you got for me? Are we going to get them, Charleston?
We're going to get them, ma'am.
I'm not talking to the CIA analyst. I want to hear from the woman who loved my son.
I'm going to end their lives.
That's my girl.
Get it at 22.5, now 2,500.
Little Red River Resort Auction, Friday, October 31st at 10 a.m. 100 Swinging Bridge Road, Heber Springs, Arkansas. 50-acre income-producing property on the Little Red River. Waterfront home with boat dock. 8 waterfront manufactured home lots. 2 RV parks totaling 143 spaces. 9 commercial buildings, and development land for future expansion. Offered in 6 tracks and combinations. For more information, go to wilsonauctioneers.com.
I have sold it.
Kelly and Michael know how to brew the perfect morning.
What's in here?
A spoonful of laughs, fun, and stir it up with some big surprises. For the perfect morning, just add Kelly and Michael.
We're going to have to drink our way out.
Weekdays at 11 on KARK4. You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View. New polls are showing some daylight between governor candidates Asa Hutchinson and Mike Ross, while both men campaigning like they've got everything to lose. I got to tour Fort Smith with Mr. Hutchinson, who tells me he has the right mix of experience and political timing to land in the governor's mansion.
I'm running for governor.
I know that.
All right.
At this point, there's a whole lot more walking for governor.
I'll let you know you got my vote. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And after 4 decades in the political arena, Republican Asa Hutchinson can almost taste it.
I can, but you don't get ahead of yourself. These 2 weeks are critically important in terms of getting out to vote. You know, leads evaporate. You can have changing dynamics.
But it's changing dynamics, including a Republican takeover of the state legislature in recent years that has a 63-year-old positioned to capitalize and calling himself the jobs governor.
You obviously need to have career education emphasized in our 2-year colleges, in our high schools. You've got to talk about computer coding in every high school. So all of that's part of the puzzle of creating an economy that is dynamic and is growing. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
On this day, we find Hutchinson in Fort Smith touting tourism near the site of the soon-to-be U.S. Marshals Museum and retail businesses on busy Garrison Street, a historic main drag in Sebastian County, where some people you meet, they might vote, just not in this election.
Man, good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Where are you from?
Stigler, Oklahoma.
I knew it. That's a wonderful thing about Fort Smith. You get them all.
The campaign marches on to Sparks Regional Medical Center, where invariably the discussion with hospital CEO Dan McKay turns to Arkansas's compromised Medicaid expansion.
As you looked into the future of the private options, from your experience, are there any changes and adjustments that ought to be made to make it better?
I worry about the future of it, if anything. It's just the funding. Will the funding be there, and what happens if the funding goes away?
Hutchinson says he's taking a measured approach to the program, not committing to it long-term yet.
There's greater ownership of what we're doing in healthcare. People try to make it all partisan, but to me, when I do this campaign, we certainly reach out to the Democrats and the independents.
And that is an ongoing process with early voting underway. Well, that is it for this edition of Capitol View. Don't forget you can stay up to date with Arkansas politics by following us on Twitter, Capitol View AR, and download the Capitol View smartphone app. It is in your favorite app store right now. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you back here for one more before Election Day edition of Capitol View. Thank you.
That is a big